dude. I didn't even see the movie yet.
I kind of figured. That wet fart, means that it's time to talk about the Batman. So this is Matt Reeves' first attempt at this Batman movie. Matt Reeves, pretty good director. He's getting a lot of leeway here. You know, he brought us the Cloverfield franchise. He did a couple of the Planet of the Apes movies, which were hit or miss, but I would say
The
well
better
directed.
ones.
Yeah, he did the better ones, the ones that had actual action in them, not titled War that had no war. God damn it. This is currently at 85% on Rotten Tomatoes, 91% from fans. Now we're talking about the Batman, not Planet of the Apes. Can we talk about this AMC surcharge? Because that's the first time I've ever heard of anything like this, and it's kind of horseshit.
I agree.
Explain.
I'm an A-list member, though. I didn't even look into it because it doesn't impact me.
It didn't impact me either, but I heard about it, and it's horseshit.
Explain what it is.
I mean, it's basically just surge pricing. I'm trying to variable pricing, an extra $1 on adult tickets for the Batman at certain theaters. It's something that AMC has been doing for years in Europe, and now they're trying it in the U.S. Keep your shitty European traditions out of our fucking country. This is America.
As tradition.
So we're gonna throw your
if
fucking
something-
tea into the harbor.
I would have.
Isn't it
I
kind
would
of
have
the same
appreciated
thing?
like an explanation.
Isn't it kind of like going to a matinee movie and then going to a movie at 7 o'clock? It's premium price just went up $1
Wow, pro-capitalist brick.
for
bastard.
inflation, right? I mean,
Capitalist fucking pig.
the only time that movie theaters are gonna be making their money anyway is during those big blockbuster movies where they go and they buy the popcorn.
The $30 popcorn that is
Yeah.
99% margin. Yeah, I think they're doing fine.
Did they give an explanation as to why they were implementing the surcharge, or are they just
Because
like it's worked in
fuck
Europe,
you.
we're doing it? Okay,
Because fuck you, that's why.
that's where they fucked up. Because all right, it's one thing to have a surcharge and just say like, "Hey, this has worked financially for our division in Europe," but it's another thing to actually kind of convince people like, "Hey, there's a lot more people coming into the theater. We need to hire more staff to do cleaning and things like this." That's why we're implementing the surcharge. That, even though it's still bullshit, that would have, I feel like, went over better with people in general.
I guess. I just think
But-
it's poor practice, especially in a time when some people are struggling.
Yeah.
Go to Batman at a matinee.
Or you can just wait a month until it comes out on HBO Max, because it's already been announced that it'll come April 19th. I wrote that down, which is a very quick turnaround. I do want to talk about how it's done in the box office, though, because it is the second largest post-COVID, I guess, if you want to call it that even. It's the second largest opening other than Spider-Man, which, by the way, the surcharge, even with that, this did 130 million roughly, and Spider-Man was still more than double that in their first weekend. So that it's doing really well, which is great, because I need movie theaters to keep putting movies out. But yeah, not quite as good as the Spider-Man flick.
I think that also makes sense, though, because Spider-Man, it appealed to a bigger audience and was for a larger audience because you can actually bring your kid. I would not recommend bringing your kid. I think that was made clear on a lot of people's reviews, is like, this is super dark. Don't bring it. Don't bring your children here that are under 10 years old, 12 years old, whatever.
I saw a lot of kids in my theater. It was a Thursday night at
actually didn't see
7:30,
any.
and I saw a couple like 5-6-year-olds. Like,
Really?
all right. Luckily, they were nice, quiet kids. But Brick, what was your movie theater experience like?
I had it was okay. I had literally just an old fat guy and his date, just like, oh, we just moved up to your seats, because I had the middle section of the main row, and I was like, we would be sitting next to each other when they're in a huge open theater. Like, dude, you could just move, right? You can request the seats. We didn't care. We just went sit down and went up a row.
Did he like keep tapping you on the foot, because he might have been trying to have a threesome with you?
Right. Well, he actually would, like, during parts of the movie, he'd go like, "Bah!" or like, "Ah, stairs, Mike." I was just like, all right, dude, just shut the hell up.
I think
So
maybe the
you said
hardest I've
old
ever
Goober.
laughed in a movie theater was when I went to see Rampage, and I brought Erica with me, and I had to fart really bad. And it was during the climax of the movie, and I waited until it got super quiet in the theater, and I just let it rip. And
Worst
like
person
four
alive.
people on either side of us just turned to go. And Erica was
Dude.
just mortified. That's probably the
Why
hardest
would
I've
you
ever laughed in a
all-
movie theater.
All
Even
time,
with it being the climax, why wouldn't you walk out of the theater, you piece of shit?
Because I knew it
No.
would be hilarious.
no, because there's a moment that you know what you can do. Two choices: be a human being,
No.
or leave, or leave, or leave and fart outside. Just fucking let her rip.
Or in terms of the Batman, you can be vengeance or you can now be hope.
I
You
can
were
be
just
vengeance
fucking
or I can be
vengeance.
justice. This day I chose vengeance.
Oh my god, you piece of shit.
All right. I don't know what made me think
Can
of that,
I-
but anyways.
I want to mention two things in the chat. First one being from Elise. I didn't actually know they were doing this in Europe. Elise says, "I'll take the surcharge for long movie or take the surcharge on long movies, but give me an intermission like Europe." I was thinking about that. Why the hell haven't we started doing intermissions for these types of movies?
I've been
It
calling
would
for that for
increase
years.
sales. It would increase sales. Let people go take a piss, and then most likely they'll be like, I'll go get a Coke now because I don't have to pee.
Exactly. It's more opportunities to get you in the lobby of a movie theater. I don't know.
Whatever. And then we had Joe saying maybe the longer movies, 3 hours plus, change more because they can't use those theaters as much that day. That makes sense. The allotted time they need to use that theater because the movie's long.
I've been to plenty of 3+ hour movies that don't do that.
Yeah.
And what is with you people fighting on the side of people charging us more money?
We're just trying to rationalize it because
Yeah.
it's tough out there, you know.
Aren't you the only stockholder too?
I dumped it
You're
a long
bitching
time
about
ago.
this?
No.
Did you?
And plus, their stock price is not tied to their sales, so don't worry about that. Maybe that's a finance fun topic for next week.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, let's talk about this actual Batman movie, though. I think I'll just wait and go last. Mark, I know that you really want to talk about this, so just give me your overall thoughts.
I like the casting a lot more than I thought I would. There were specific characters that I thought were great, and I can't wait to see more of them. I think the movie accomplished a lot. It did not need to be 3 hours. And I'm just going to leave it at that for now. I'm going to say see it.
Rick?
Okay. I liked the ambiance that they created in the movie. The score was good. They had like a beating war drum, and you kind of felt uneasy with this Batman compared to other Batmans, which is nice. And they start out with like Ave Maria, the song going in the background, and then just like a lot of Gothic architecture in the scenery was cool. I think and plus, I kind of like what they did with the colors, because at times it almost felt like this was a black and white movie with some of the like lighting stuff that they did, but it was cool because it gave like a comic book silhouette kind of vibe with it, because it was kind of like a noir, like psychological thriller, and they like when there were lights, they were prominent. It was like prominently one color.
It's a big switch from the black and blue dark to the bright red.
Right.
That was very intentional, very well done, I think, yeah.
And they did like with the green as well. When they were talking about the Riddler, they would do lights of green when they're I think it worked well because of the noir vibe that it gave off. Good level of psycho, but realism. All of his like gadgets I felt were really kind of based in reality to a certain degree. Like he did a lot of like weight shifting with his like bat grappling hook to like take guys down. He did things like smartly and efficiently. It felt like it was a real kind of Batman
grounded.
for what. Yeah, there you go.
The opposite of what Ben Affleck Batman was.
Right, exactly, and that's what you like. That's what I personally like about the Batman character himself, is just it's grounded. These could happen to a certain degree in real life. Like he had a shocker on his bat suit to like in the first initial scene when he was fighting. What were those Joker goons? You think? Like one of them was like half in, half out, and it was
Could
like
be. It's
half painted face, like
Mhm.
a little gang. That could be the Joker's nod, I felt early on. I just think they did good with some characters, but some other characters felt flat, which I'll talk about later. What do you think, Smithers?
I was very middle of the road on this. I don't necessarily think that it does anything that any other Batman movie hasn't already given us. We've seen Origin Batman. This is kind of they do specifically say this is year 2 Batman. Not that it particularly matters. This pulls from a lot of different source materials, heavily influenced by Long Halloween, but also a lot of that year 1 style stuff, particularly with the Riddler specifically. I think, Mark, you can correct anything that you think is out of line. But I also think that any Batman portrayal is only as good as his villain. And I fucking hated Paul Dano in this.
Wow. Okay.
So that
Why?
sucks. He's just an internet dork.
Isn't that kind of what Enigma does, though, to a certain degree? Is he's kind of off and away and setting all these elaborate traps and riddles, and then just like mind games.
To kill 3 people, though, like, okay, I know this isn't the shining example that I'm gonna paint it as, but Jim Carrey as the Riddler was trying to mind control the entire planet. This guy kills like 3 leaders in a city, and everybody's so terrified. It's not a problem that he's a dork. I just think it's the specific portrayal here and what they asked him to do with his extended screaming and dumb shit. It didn't land for me, and I didn't like it at all. That's it. I'm not going to say that the movie was bad, because I did like Pattinson. I liked Zoe Kravitz. I could have used more Colin Farrell, honestly. John Turturro is pretty good as the untouchable dude. I liked him a lot as the one of the larger villains. He is Falcone, Carmine Falcone. Yeah, the way it's shot, the scene specifically with the muzzle flares that is the entire lighting for the scene, so it's interspersed and goes pitch black during, and you see the silhouettes fighting is brilliantly done. I didn't love the score, mostly because it was a version of one of 3 things. Brick mentioned Ave Maria. The other was the saddest, most boring Nirvana song of all time that just gets spread out. And then the other one was just drums. It was good. It was really moody and dark and brooding, but Pattinson was just kind of emo. And I liked his portrayal when he was Batman. His Bruce Wayne wasn't there for me. And I hated that he was a dick to Alfred.
I think the one character that fell really flat for me was Alfred. It was just because their relationship sucked. It was like the first thing Batman says to Alfred was right after like a huge accident. It's just like, "You lied to me." Like, all right.
Yeah.
But I guess
are
that
you
is
okay?
kind of
Can I get you
Batman.
anything? Can I call a nurse? No,
Well,
fuck
that
you.
is
This is
kinda
more important.
Brooding Batman. I guess that kind of makes sense. But his face when he was like being serious and talking just was literally nothingness. But I guess that is supposed to be like Batman. He doesn't really show emotion, right?
He's pathological, yeah.
So, I mean, I didn't like it for that reason, but at the same time, then I think about it, I'm like, all right, that is what Batman does, I guess.
I think there's something we need to talk about specifically, which is the Batmobile. Because this is
Why don't you rate it first?
I'm sorry. All right, this is the part where you yell at me.
Do it.
This comes out April 19th on HBO Max. Wait and see it then, so you can just save it.
Save it. Brick?
See it.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about the Batmobile.
Yeah. So it's based on an old Lincoln, and nothing about it is necessarily bad. It just doesn't do anything that great, and it has a jet engine on it for no apparent reason, and it still goes through gears like it has a combustion engine. It's dumb, and you can tell, like, it's intimidating, but it also just looks like... Have you ever seen somebody buy, like, a Dodge Neon and put gigantic fucking tires on it? It felt like that. and it just wasn't as cool as it could have been. I was so excited in the very beginning of this movie. They did an overhead shot, and he had a complete disassembled top end of an engine. It had the valves and the pistons and all that shit out, and I was like, "Fuck yes, this is gonna be super." Batman's gonna be into it. He's gonna be like the mechanic trying to figure this out, and he kind of is eventually. But Brick, you mentioned on the pre-stream, the Batmobile was just like conveniently in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, because I feel like they rode motorcycles to the spot at night, like, and they were in kind of a rush, and then all of a sudden he just was like, the Batmobile was there. But I guess that just kind of happens with Batman too, doesn't it? He just fucking.
And another thing, if you make a broody movie, it doesn't have to rain every day. There, at one point early in the movie, Batman is trying to follow Zoe Kravitz, and they're both on motorcycles in the pouring fucking rain. Like, you wouldn't notice somebody else following you on a motorcycle when you're the only people on motorcycles because it's pouring fucking rain.
Mm-hmm. I actually think this movie did this better than any other Batman movie that we've seen, is the portrayal of what Gotham is, how shitty Gotham truly is, which we've never. The movie's done an okay job. I mean, Keaton's Batman movie, they did.
Batman Begins kind of did. You know, he
Batman
goes under
Begins
that bridge and gives the guy's coat.
But like, this is a very polluted city, which I would attribute to rain, because when there's a shit ton of pollution, doesn't it rain all the time? Just kind of just get rid of that shit.
Plus, when you're right by the water, there's 15-minute snow showers all the time. Not snow showers, but like just where it powers down rain constantly when you're living by the water.
Regardless, trying to make sense of that or not, but
yeah. Because some of the shots looked like Chicago, some of them were definitely out in London. I was really trying to piece together where they made this fucking movie, but I agree with you. The setting was really well done on this. Having to go into the slums and seeing shit like that, yeah, it's.
And then it had that like Blade Runner type city center feel, and I thought that was cool too. Like that Times Square looking, but still
Gotham Square Garden, yeah,
really crappy area of town. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that how Madison Square Garden is built into the ground?
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Not like close enough. You guys got to defend the Riddler to me.
Hold on. Back to the Batmobile real quick, though. Would you have appreciated the Batmobile a little bit more if you would have had those scenes with Pattinson actually assembling it himself? Because you kind of get the vibe that this is a 2-year Batman. So this Batman, it has this not so good relationship with Alfred yet. You know, he's kind of like, this is what I'm trying to do. It's all about vengeance. It's all about getting back at the people that screwed his life up, that took his parents away, yada yada. But would you have appreciated it more if we had a better understanding of like, hey, Pattinson is the one, you know, putting all of this together just by himself? Like if there were scenes of him actually doing mechanical work on the Batmobile.
First of all, it wouldn't make it a better movie, definitely, because then it would just be longer, and that would make it worse. But also, I get what you mean. That's just pandering to me, and most like the general population probably doesn't give a shit about that. But yeah, I would appreciate it. Like, show me that he's the engineer, because he's supposed to be that way for all of his gadgets. He builds everything that he does. So yeah, I wanted more of that.
I did particularly like the actual car chase that was in. It was a little butt clenching, and at the very end, like, it showed a lot of Cobblepot, which was like his reaction, his like first kind of meetings with the Batman, and he's just in this wild fucking car chase. He's like building up an actual gripe that he's like, that motherfucking Batman, he's always doing something to me. He's just trying to like run a business, even though he's a criminal, obviously, but like he's like helping him out where he is, but he's just like getting chased down by his fucking psycho Batmobile. Mm-hmm. I thought it. I like the scene itself.
I felt like that scene was completely unnecessary in this movie, and part of the reason why this movie was too long.
It needed more action. I think that's my one gripe with it, is it was made for like a psychological thriller, but I wanted still more Batman like fighting people, because his punches, I felt like Robert Pattinson's punches were fast. They looked fast comparatively to everyone else. It just like looked clean, to
Which
be
is
honest.
impressive considering the suit he wore, because that looked pretty heavy.
Yeah. So I like some of the combat features that they had with it, and also like I like how the gadgets. Nothing really like you got each gadget like had its own little moment. Like he had the bat suit, I guess, where you like kind of intensely like just used it and flew down from the city from like the first person view, and then he had the one scene with the Batmobile, and then he
Mhm.
had like a scene where he used like one gadget per fight, and then he like I don't know, it just seemed like each thing had its own specific moment, which is why everything was so long. But I
I
feel like more action would have been great.
I did appreciate that Pattinson is Batman. I loved his Batman, didn't like his Bruce Wayne, because his Batman just walks right in the iceberg lounge and starts beating the fuck out of people. And
Yeah.
that's what I want more of.
I
Yeah,
think
that was
Batman
dope.
fans should just appreciate the fighting scenes in general, because if you look back, we had a nice fighting scene with Affleck, which was the warehouse scene that everyone was talking about, but that was literally the only scene that we
He's
had
too
in that
old,
movie,
man.
I
He
feel like.
can't do that
And he
shit.
was too old. Um, Christian Bale, the one thing that I loved about Pattinson's Batman is, and maybe this isn't because of him, maybe it's because of the direction of Matt Reeves, but it was the way that the fighting was shot. And everyone that loves The Dark Knight, I feel like, has to admit the fighting and the fighting scenes in those, it was elbowing Batman. That's all it was. It wasn't that great. So I think what we had in this was phenomenal. We could have had more, but I did like the direction of the story, which was actually telling the story, which I think was a little bit too long. But in the end, I think it was one of the best told Batman on-screen stories, of where it was focusing on his detective work, which we don't get a lot of in other live action portrayals. And it was actually showing people like, you guys maybe not read the comics and think that Batman is all about, saving people and getting in a fight with goons and protecting the city of Gotham. But a lot of the time it's being the greatest detective ever. It's doing this detective work, which I really appreciated about this
That's
movie.
that scene specifically where he first gets introduced and Gordon and him were in the house like looking up clues. His walk, it was like a slow and like unstable like walk. Like this guy's a fucking loose cannon because of just like how he was walking, and just like it was kind of eerie and slow, but he was like supposed to be walking slow because he's like taking in a crime scene. But it was like
Mhm.
eerie and just like dark. And I liked his portrayal in that regard too. It was like an unsettling Batman.
They use that several times. Great in the opening scene as well, when he's explaining how he puts fear into people. The scene where they're about to jump that dude, and his footsteps rang out for 10 seconds or more at least. And that was very intimidating. So I agree, Mark. It was very well directed. And I know it sounds like I'm shitting all over this movie. I do think it had
Mhm.
good qualities. I just
I would,
go
yeah.
back to my
No,
main point, where it's Batman is as good as his villain, and I don't think that this villain was good.
Mhm. So, um, to start with Paul Dano, I actually kind of liked what he did with the Riddler, especially in the interrogation scene when he's in Arkham, or in the he's in Arkham Asylum,
Yeah.
isn't he? In the
Mhm.
holding. But I do feel like he was extending a little bit. Like he was trying to reach for something that he didn't really need to do. Like there were times where he's like, the way he smiled and the way he just reacted to certain things that Batman said, I thought were great. But when he started to kind of mold in this like Joker type feel, I was like, I could kind of do without it. He really went that, like, there were scenes where, yes, that is the Riddler, but I also felt like he's trying to go way too psychotic.
He's the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah.
Like that's his thing.
Yes.
And I don't really know how to say this without just saying it, but it felt like they were like, okay, do what an autistic person does. And that was just like, you end up yelling because you're upset because you don't have that control. And I don't know. The whole thing just didn't feel portrayed correctly. And the whole like, oh, it's a message board. Yeah, I get it. You're trying to keep up with the times. It just didn't feel right to me. You know what? Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I also think you have to realize this is year 2. A lot of shit people hold within themselves in 2 years. I mean, look at what you'd had to deal with as people. Fucking COVID. It's like 2 years isn't that long, or it might not seem long to people.
I'm already planning the murder of both of you.
Yeah. So this is a year 2 Batman. To start off with his with Pattinson as Bruce Wayne, he doesn't know how to be Bruce Wayne. All he knows is how to be Batman, which I think it's hard for people to realize that. With Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne, people love that because yes, that is Batman putting on this facade, putting on this act of being Bruce Wayne when deep down he knows I'm Batman. That this is who I am. But this Bruce Wayne, in my opinion, didn't know how to be Bruce Wayne. Only knew how to be Batman for now. And that's what I think, that's what I'm looking forward to most about this movie, is what we have to look forward to in the future is if they continue this, and I don't think this is going to be part of the DCEU. I don't think they're going to tie in Pattinson with the DCEU. I think they're going to kind of be like, we're going to keep this separate for now. We'll figure that out down the road, but we want to focus on the success of this franchise. So I think with this younger cast, not that young, I don't know, mid-30s, whatever, but still they look younger. They're not Ben Affleck. I think with that fact, being able to continue this franchise, we'll get there. We'll get to where hopefully Robert Pattinson, his Batman, his Bruce Wayne, realizes like, I need to start being Bruce Wayne. And I think that's what we got a sense of at the end. It's like, I was all about vengeance. Now I need to start being a symbol of hope for the city. I need to, yeah. And I think we started to see that, but I think people are missing the point that this is what they were going for in this movie. This Bruce Wayne that didn't know how to be in public yet with people, because all he cared about was being Batman. He would be in daylight. He needed to put on sunglasses because he just only cared about Batman and pursuing that right now.
It's not that I don't get what they were going for as much as it is that I just I don't like it.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. But I think we're going to get it is what I'm saying. I think hopefully we'll hear about a second movie, and I think they're going to take it in that direction where we see this change of Bruce Wayne actually putting on the act of billionaire Bruce Wayne.
Let's compare this to Batman Begins. Which one was a better first movie, you think? Batman Begins? Or
for me, Begins, yeah.
Because Ra's al Ghul was a better villain, you think?
He definitely was. And I think that you got the same issues of Bruce Wayne learning how to be Batman, but he also, like Mark said, was able to put on the facade that was, I'm the billionaire playboy. I just bought your restaurant. Fuck you, I'll play in your fountain. So I like that version a lot more than this one.
Than the one who just doesn't know how to deal with his emotions, so he just kind of stays in shuttered.
I mean, Christian Bale didn't know how to deal with his emotions either, so that's why he went out and beat up people with mental health problems. And I mean, yeah, it's not necessarily that one way is right or the other one is wrong. In my opinion,
yeah, I think with it being a more grounded Batman, to Brick's point, and this really tries to do a good job at being like, this could actually happen, like this city and what goes on in it could actually be real life, but also being from the early development stage. It's like with Riddler, he's not going to have all these huge technical riddles thought out already. He's focused on this one that has a huge impact. I'm not really a big fan of the whole water supply thing. Again, I think they keep reusing that, but at the same time, it's like I'm kind of understanding, like, yeah, he only has 500 followers. Like, this is the early stages of these characters, early stage of Batman, early stage of Riddler. Maybe we'll see it down the road of them becoming this, this bigger figure with a different suit, with a different costume, whatever. So that's kind of my take on it.
The Riddler was a twin, right? Or no?
I don't know what you mean.
Because wasn't he the last Riddler guy who was going to point in a head? He was pointing a shotgun at Batman's head at the very top. And like,
no, that wasn't him.
Are you sure?
That was a different guy.
Different guy altogether? Okay. Because, I mean,
he looked kind of similar. I'll give you that.
They all wore the same masks and ceramic and shit.
When he got arrested at the counter at after the third murder or whatever, he showed two IDs. Who couldn't he technically be a twin? And that last guy was the other. I'm pretty sure
those were just fakes because they had different last names on them.
Okay, I don't know. I thought the guy it just looked so similar, and he had the actual mask at the very end.
I just thought it was funny that he was basically, his sign off was a vlog, and he was like, "Thanks, guys." He did the thing, like and subscribe.
Yeah.
Which is the effective way of indoctrinating people to go murder some innocent civilians and try and kill the mayor.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the other characters real quick. Or go ahead.
Okay. Do you think that the Riddler was hinting at Court of Owls?
I think the whole Arkham backstory with the Waynes was doing that a little bit better. But what do you mean by the Riddler specifically?
Well, he is talking about. I know specifically in this case, it was a specific instance where Thomas Wayne did something maybe that he shouldn't have. But I think that they're going to get into the ties of that. And I also noticed that the very first card that he wrote to Batman was an owl on the cover. And I feel as though that's pretty intentional.
And
Yeah.
he was talking to the Two-Face in jail, right?
That had to be Joker.
Yeah, now we're talking about spoilers, so we might want to throw something up. But
I mean, I don't necessarily. Is that really a spoiler?
I mean,
my argument
he
about
is in
this,
IMDb. But
this
go ahead.
movie not doing anything new that we haven't seen before, like that, I don't think there was any kind of twist or anything unexpected. I would argue that 95% of people, had you asked, would go into this, and if you asked them before, are they going to allude to the Joker in some way, they would all say yes.
Can the Joker be tied in? Can Joaquin Phoenix's Joker be tied into this universe?
They can do whatever the fuck they want. They own all the rights.
Would you want that Joker, or would you want a new one?
I'm good on that one. I think we saw exactly what we needed to see out of it.
Right.
Yeah, I don't
agree with that.
I would like them to throw in a different villain. They
He
don't
so
need to
many
just do
great
another
villains.
Joker movie.
I thought. Can we talk about it?
Talk about whatever you want.
We are.
I thought it was Two-Face in the jail.
I mean, it could have been.
No,
it doesn't have to be
not.
either.
Because he had half of his head was shaved, and the other half had the long hair on it, and he had like a drooping fucking face, drooping like teeth at the bottom.
He had some type of smile thing going on. I can guarantee you that was supposed to be Joker. Yeah.
And
they can do whatever they want. It doesn't matter either way.
Didn't the Riddler and Two-Face work together in like that with Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones? Was that the same one?
There was no Riddler in that, if that's what you're asking, or Joker in that, if that's what you're asking.
What I'm saying, the Enigma and Two-Face have a history together, is what I'm saying.
I mean, all of Batman's villains at some point work together.
No, fair enough.
You can guarantee you they're not point to a comic for anything.
I can guarantee you they weren't like, hey, they did it in Batman Forever or whatever. Let's do it in this one.
They are not trying to replicate that movie.
Right.
But Smithers, back to like the Easter egg thing. The only reason why I'm a little hesitant on like, it would make sense. Court of Owls, that's an earlier Gotham type villain story. And it would be a good one, but they did have a lot of references. Like there was one letter that was written to Batman where they started opening up the mystery about the reporter, that was gonna unwrap the stuff about Martha Wayne and stuff like that. But they put Hush because the reporter's name was Edward Elliot, which is Thomas Elliot Hush's great grandpa or whatever. So there was a lot of Easter eggs in there that could make you think like there was the Venom scene where he injects some stuff with this green shit Batman at the end of the movie and gives him this kind of adrenaline rush where you could be like, oh, is that a Bane reference? I don't know. It's fun to speculate, and comic book readers are going to do that all day, but who knows?
There'll be a million think pieces on this between now and the next one.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I will one more time just reiterate that people are mentioning the DCEU and this universe, how it's going to work.
He's too grounded in reality. They already did. They've already established what his physical limitations are.
This is Batman. They don't need to put this Batman in a Flash movie. They can set up this own world of these younger, really good actors to continue this franchise. And then later on, maybe DCEU kind of comes to an end. Maybe we don't get Momoa Aquaman anymore. Maybe it just doesn't work. And then they have this already to kind of reset things or continue things and bring in a new Aquaman in this Pattinson universe. But
totally fine.
I can guarantee you this is not going to be a DCEU type thing with these movies.
Next thing to be announced tomorrow, it'll be Joaquin Phoenix joins the Batman with Pattinson to go to space.
Yeah, with Peacekeeper, they just tie everything in.
Yeah, and I like this grounded universe. I think you both touched on it pretty well when you were talking about your thoughts. And yeah, Brick, you mentioned it's very, he's just getting started. He doesn't have the ridiculous gadgets. And Mark, you nailed it too. So yeah, that's something they got right. I'm not saying they didn't get anything right about this movie. Thought it could have
Don't
been
prefer
better
it.
and 45 minutes shorter.
I agree. I think it definitely could have been shorter. I'm going to still say see it. I liked what they did. It's that.
Level of
final
jackness,
thoughts
Mark,
on this?
before we go. Level of jackness. Considering it's
Um,
Batman Year 2.
He's still an early Batman, dude. He's got time to get more jacked. He's not that jacked. Let's be honest.
He's not. The villain wasn't
Okay.
jacked. Nobody was jacked.
That's the one downfall right here.
You
Damn.
gotta have a jacked Batman.
Yeah.
Brick, was everyone crazy enough for you?
I would say there was a sufficient amount of psycho. I did love the thumb drive riddle to start
Thumb
out. It just
drive
kind
was
of
good.
it was like practical. It like made sense, and it was like simple enough where it was like, oh, duh, and it's crazy enough where it's like that's a psycho thing to do. But Colin
That's
Farrell
fun.
was the best character, I thought.
Yeah, he was good. Unrecognizable.
Unrecognizable, but he was
I-
a fucking awesome. I love the way that they're the direction that they're going with Cobblepot. Like he looked like a fucking penguin too, with the scars, the beak nose, the gold teeth, the attitude himself. It was just like I loved the way that they kind of introduced that character. I'm looking forward to more of that.
I noticed that none of us have mentioned Commissioner Gordon Jeffrey Wright because
Oh,
he
he
was
was awesome
also a
too.
very forgettable character.
I liked the scene, especially when he was like in the actual police department, and he's like, "You need to get out of here," and then they just escape. But he's like, "You could at least pulled your punch, dude." Like,
Everyone punches.
Batman
Yeah.
does bullshit.
yeah, there was some
They-
good subtle humor there that I appreciated too from him.
They used their one fuck. It was one of the cops early in the movie. I don't remember the exact context, but they did use it, so props to them for that.
Hell yeah! Now it's Batman.
I thought Jeffrey Wright wasn't. I kind of liked how he did Commissioner Gordon, but I just
So do I.
feel like he's always like people. He's not forgettable, but people always just don't give him that much credit. They're like, "Oh yeah, Jeffrey Wright was in this, and he was actually pretty good." I don't know.
I don't think
It's-
that's. I love him as an actor. I'm not saying he did a bad job. It's just
Yeah,
maybe it's the way they wrote it. I thought he was forgettable, and obviously none of us mentioned him at all. So
Well, we barely mentioned like Catwoman, but she did a good job as Catwoman. I felt.
Krisky mentioned Catwoman quite a bit, so I
Oh,
think we covered
nice.
that. All right, final thoughts on this before we wrap up.
I think that's about. I'm good.
Mark, you got nothing else? I really thought you guys were
No.
gonna. Wow.
it's a little long. Do not go see this movie after a 9-hour workday of just staring at a screen because your eyes will almost melt.
I saw it at 4:50. Perfect. Was out by like.
And
Out by
7.
9:30.
Yeah, right.
it is completely different. You don't need to be a comic book reader by any means to go see this, but don't expect to be seeing The Dark Knight. Stop comparing it. Stop reading those goddamn articles on comicbook.com about The Dark Knight or this movie and what they both do. This
You
is
should be
not The Dark
comparing
Knight
it.
at
Yeah,
all.
you should be comparing it to. If you're going to compare it to something, it would be Batman Begins, not The Dark Knight, because everyone goes straight to the apex of the whole story. The second movie.
I mean,
The second
that's
movie should-
natural though, right?
No, exactly.
Yeah, I still disagree because the Batman Begins they had a different vision of, hey, this Bruce Wayne is already gonna know he needs to be Bruce Wayne, the billionaire, and Batman. This Batman is more of just so infatuated with becoming the Batman at night and doesn't care about him being Bruce Wayne at all. They're already doing different things with this from the beginning of
Yes.
the Batman arc, I'll call it. So I
Agreed.
still wouldn't compare Batman Begins with this at all. They're different movies. Just
Okay.
understand that, and don't bring your kids to this, and know that this is going to focus on Batman from a detective aspect of all things.
Psychological thriller.
The Nirvana was so bad. Okay, yeah, that's. I can't listen to it anymore. It's just so on the nose and heavy-handed and so stupid.
Okay, I'm gonna take a shit, boys.
All right, see you
Jump
later.
out.